and welcome to another Gaming the System. And today it's myself, Jem, and Matt, and we're going to be talking about the Last of Us TV series, which has been made on the back of the awesome Last of Us game that we've talked about quite a lot on this podcast over the years, and that we also love. So we're just going to talk about the first 2 episodes today, because we feel like there's so much to say about the whole thing that we want to give ourselves opportunity to do that without spending 4 hours recording in one sitting. So we are here to talk about that. So Matt, I just was wondering how far through are you so far? Are you watching it as they come out, or are you know, how's that going for you?
Yeah, I'm up to date. I've been watching them on the Mondays after, as soon as they're coming out. And it's been quite a while since I've followed a TV show that comes out like that, because most stuff comes out like in one big chunk a lot these days. But yeah, it's nice to be going through something at the same time as everyone else in the world.
Yeah, I think that is really nice, isn't it? I mean, I've watched episode 1 and 2, and episode 3 came out last weekend, and I've not yet got round to watching it, but I will do. And it's more about, you know, it's one of those things that I like to savor it. So it's like I need to have the time when I can sit down and I know I can enjoy the whole thing through without interruptions and without falling asleep on the sofa. Not that it's the sort of show that you could fall asleep to, but and I agree with you completely, Matt. And I think that it's really interesting because a game like a TV show like The Last of Us is set over a period of time, and one of the problems I think that box sets have when they come out in one all at the same time, and you binge watch them, is you don't get that feeling of the passing of time. So even though time might pass for the characters in the show, because you're watching it, you know, back to back in, you know, 1 or 2 sittings, you don't feel that time passing in the same way. And I think that can sometimes make some episodes feel a bit disjointed. So I think it's really nice that they have done this, that they've trusted in the value of the show, that people will make time to come back and watch it on a weekly basis. And I think that's a really positive thing. And you know, but I get a bit impatient sometimes because I'm like, I want to know what happens next. Oh, I gotta wait a week. So yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, so I haven't watched the 3rd episode, so I've just watched the first 2. So shall we talk about how it compares to the game a little bit? Do you have any thoughts on how the live action version compares to the game?
Well, first off, Pedro Pascal is the most wonderful human being in existence, and seeing him going through everything that you see in the game, and how completely different he is to Troy Baker, because Pedro Pascal's voice is a lot higher than
Right.
Troy
Yeah.
Baker's. So straight away, that just feels like it just feels like it's sort of like an alternate universe to the games, where
Mm.
it's the same thing, but it's just different in lots of ways. The scene where his daughter dies is still the worst thing ever,
Oh
and
God, yeah.
they made that even worse than the game. Um, and how much more they seem to lean into Joel being like the child and his daughter being like the parent.
Mm.
And then yeah, that's devastating. And Tommy him being a military veteran, that makes a lot of sense. The slow burn of it, I appreciate that, because games, the structure of games are completely different to the narrative structure of a TV show.
Mm.
And so they were able to just take those same situations and show them differently. Like the day before the outbreak, just the old woman in the wheelchair is the most horrifying thing I've ever seen.
Oh, I know.
She's going,
Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. Yeah. And it was, I mean, it really delivered, I think, that scene, because nothing happened. We saw that going on in the background, but she didn't then get up and do anything. That was later. So I think that was, yeah, just makes you think, yeah, this show is going to have us on the edge of our seats for the whole time, which is what the game did for me. I mean, it certainly did. And I think they're no stranger to, yeah, taking their time, like you say. And I know that, like, I'm currently playing Last of Us 2, which is amazing and brilliant. And there are scenes in that where you just play a guitar, and it's so nice that they've again trusted their audience, that they're happy to take it slow, to tell the story, to develop the characters, and also to weave emotional interaction and emotional engagement from those of us watching it and seeing it. And I've been there was a scene in the second episode where they're walking across a some planks over a sort of gap between two houses, and they look out over the city and sort of talk about the view. And I actually turned to my husband at that scene and I said, I don't remember this from the game. I don't remember this bit from the game. And literally, like, the next day, somebody had put out a side by side sort of example of it, and it was almost word for word from the game. And as soon as I saw it from the game footage, I was like, oh yeah, I do remember that scene. I remembered playing it, and I had really good visual memory of doing that and being part of it. But I think it really goes to show, like, how compartmentalized our thinking can be sometimes. With, this is a TV show with real people in it, and this is a computer game. But I think I also noted in the really early on in the first episode, when there's a big chase scene through the town in their car, and they're trying to escape from all this chaos that's happening. And it played out on the screen like a computer game. I felt you could feel that sort of thing, that in a computer game where they're getting you to learn the ropes and to, like, do this, you need to go left, you need to go right, you need to do that, you need to shoot over there, you need to, there was all this stuff going on, and it felt like they kind of brought that into the TV show without it feeling lame or out of place or anything. And I think it's a very positive experience, because I'm sort of looking at it and going, I was there. And I have done that, and I have experienced these things in when I played it in as a game, and now I'm watching it unfold on the screen, and that's been quite an interesting process. And yeah, I mean, the scene where his daughter dies, oh my gosh. I mean, when I watched it, I knew, when I played it, I knew that it was about a man and a young girl traveling. So I assumed that the daughter would be the young girl. So I was completely not prepared for her to die. And, it's so sensitively and tenderly handled, I felt. And yeah, really, one of many scenes in the whole show, in the whole game, and the subsequent show, that made me, really felt, in the pit of my stomach. Um, So you were talking about characterization, and the actor. How do you feel about the people they've chosen for the various characters? Are you?
I think they've cast it like pretty flawlessly, because it feels like the so straight away Pedro and Bella Ramsey, they just bring such a different energy to Joel and Ellie, because they're they're still in a very different world to the one in the game. It's
Mm,
just, I think it makes it better because they're not copying Ellie and Joel, because Ellie and Joel in the game are two of the most distinct characters like ever, and they may be saying a lot of the same words and going through a lot of the same scenarios, but they are still very different,
mm,
very different. And another element that is impressive is that even though some of the things are just looks exactly the same as the game and copied the same from the game, I never feel like I know exactly what's about to happen.
no, exactly.
So that keeps you on the edge of your seat as well. So like,
Mm,
you know what might happen, you know what happened in the game at this point, but you have no idea if that's what's going to happen, and it doesn't go like the structure you'd expect.
mm. Do you think it's lazy of them to have been so faithful to the script and the wording of? I'm being very devil's
Mhm.
advocate in my phrasing here. So, I mean, do you think that? Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's an argument that some people could say. Well, you know, you've stuck so closely to it that it's not really a new. It's not. It's just a live action version of the game. Um, do you think that's a fair?
I think my main criticism is that I think so the cinematography of games are a completely different skill to. So acting is broadly the same, writing is broadly the same, directing is broadly the same, but the way you capture a world in the real world and capture an in-game world in the way it looks, it's you can they know how to create a rich look in a
Mm,
game, but it feels like they haven't brought that same richness to the live action. There are bits where you think it doesn't look like they've just some of the camera work and the backgrounds, and it doesn't feel like too often. I think it feels a bit like it's a set, or they've just gone out into a random bit of field to do
yeah.
something. So that's the area where I think that's the blind spot
Mm,
in terms of my criticism.
mm, yeah. I mean, you know, to talk about the elephant in the room, game so TV shows and films that have been made off the back of games are notoriously bad. And I didn't see the Sonic movie, but a lot of people have talked about being quite traumatized by that. So I'm assuming that wasn't very good. And I know that we talked earlier on in our podcast about games series that were made off the back of games and TV shows that made off the back of games, and most of them are lacking, even or they are very much for the fans, that as a fan, for example, the Resident Evil. I haven't actually watched the Resident Evil series, but I know that's now being cancelled, or is in the process of being cancelled. And but I have watched some of the films, and they are pretty awful, as TV shows go. But that they had something in it for me as a gamer, because I was sort of like, oh yeah, I remember that from the game, or it was nice to see some of these scenes and some of the creatures sort of made real. Um, but I think that what this one so far, The Last of Us, is setting a whole new bar as to what we can do with these ports, basically, from the gaming world to the real world. And a lot of people are watching this, and a lot of people are really enjoying it, and I'm seeing headlines across the media about it, positive headlines from the gaming sites, and then the broadsheets, and then the red tops. I mean, people are talking about it all over the internet, and all over the world, and they are enjoying it. And my mum is watching it, and she never played the first game, and I'm able to say to her, oh yeah, that I did that in this scene, I was the one, I shot those things, and I'm just wondering if it's, yeah, if it's going to have if it's going to have well, firstly, how do you feel this is going to impact on any future um, adaptions? And now that they've set this bar, and why do you feel that this one is doing so much better than previous ones?
I think, well, part of it is that they Naughty Dog Studio is like one of the highest caliber game studios ever, and I think Neil Druckmann's been like in charge of every game for 15 years or something. So they have a very tried and tested and skillful and top of the range like project production pipeline. So when they put Neil Druckmann in charge of this, they have they had the benefit of someone who knows how to create a project like this and isn't daunted by it, because the games, it takes far longer to make a game than it does to make a TV show. And with games, you've got to make something that matters for like 10 plus hours. And so it's a matter of finding people with the creative and
So sorry about that. We just had a bit of a technical hiccup with Matt's internet connection, but he's back with us now, and he's going to continue with what he was saying.
yeah. So I'd come round to it's like one of the most expensive high production TV shows ever. But as you can see from the Amazon Lord of the Rings series, money doesn't guarantee results, and it's about who you give the money to. I think because there are people who, with a fraction of the resources, like of a massive game studio, that make incredible things. But so you just need to get the resources into the hands of the right people. And I just feel like the caliber of Naughty Dog's like creative team is so high that that's what has enabled them to create such an excellent TV show, because Naughty Dog is one of the biggest, most successful game developers ever, and their games are not just about gameplay experiences. They're one of the most focused on impactful storytelling. So I think that it's the skill in creating a story and telling it. I think that's what sets it apart.
Actually, I mean, that segues really nicely into another thing that I wanted to talk about, which is about the value of storytelling, and how I mean, we've talked a lot on our podcast about um narrative games that have, really involved and engaging storyline, and I think, we've talked about how much we value that, and from an immersive experience, it's that can be really, really good, and you can have a good and involved storyline no matter what the game is. I mean, you can have it with a card game, if it's written properly, so it's not only these kind of first person exploration games and what have you, that and adventures and things that these games are, but so I think it's really nice to see that. And I mean, obviously I'm biased because I like narrative games, I like the stories, I love the idea of when you're playing a game that you are, it's like a it's like choose your own adventure gone crazy. It's just puts it in your hands. You choose where you go, you choose what you do, and no, it's not open world all the time, but even on the games where, I mean, at the moment, as I said, I'm playing Last of Us 2, and there are so many opportunities to go and explore places that you could make it through the game without going and exploring those empty shops, or whatever, but you can choose to go and do that, and make the experience different for yourself, so you get to make choices even on games that have a sort of definite roadmap. um and I think it just goes to show how what level about in this game, that they can take it and almost word for word make it a really popular TV show. So I think, the narrative, I'm really pleased to see that, because I hope that it will encourage more um, game designers to recognize the value of having really solid, good narrative storylines going on in the games. um,
And there's the trust that the Last of Us, because the game's been out for 10 years.
yeah.
It's got 10 years worth of pedigree, and everyone who has never played the game before has been hearing about the TV show forever, and how it's based on one of the most popular video games ever, and everyone loves Pedro Pascal, and there's just so much around it for it to be an incredibly, like, grabbing the attention of a lot of people.
Mm, mm,
And I think the part of the reason why it's being so brilliant is the game developers are trusting themselves, and the studio are trusting them to deliver something that is completely different to what people would normally expect.
yeah, yeah,
And people are sticking with it, even though there can be quite a slow burn element to it, and you
mm,
don't know exactly what's going to happen, because they trust the pedigree and trust that they're not going to make you sit through. They're not going to waste your time.
mm. So, do you think that these kind of shows at this well, I say this kind of show at this level, and hopefully more in the future. These ports really from the game world to the TV world are going to encourage more people, a wider audience, into gaming. Or do you think? Do you think it's going to encourage people to pick up a controller and start shooting mushroom zombies?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, well, the sales of part one and part two have been going through the roof the last few weeks because, and I imagine the vast majority of that is either people playing the game again, but I'm sure a very large amount of it is people who are already gamers who have never played it before and thinking, oh, I'll play it and see what happens. And yeah, I think that's good. There will probably be people who will want to watch playthroughs of the game, and it just means that this. I'm sure we'll talk at some point about whether this is going to have a positive or negative impact on game adaptations going forwards, because I think it's a bit of is in the zeitgeist at the moment is video game adaptations, and when they just throw money at them, it doesn't always work out.
I'm having a look to see what games are in. What games adaptations are in progress? It's not going to give me anything sensible.
Well, there's still The Witcher.
Yes, there's all. Well, yeah, you see, The Witcher is one that I also think has been done really well. It remains to be seen what happens now that Henry Cavill's left, but that's a whole different conversation. But I think it will be fine. So in the last few minutes, because we're keeping it short and sweet today, what is your favorite, what has been your sort of favorite and least favorite moments from the first two episodes? Or
I really like the sprouts out the mouth is the most horrifying thing I've ever conceived of. And when that one kisses Tess, when she blows the place up, I thought that was magnificently horrifying.
Was that's not from the game, is it? I don't
No.
remember that. No, they've added that. Yeah.
No, and that's just horrifying. And I'd give them a lot of credit for actually the very first opening scene with John Hannah explaining about how the fungus is going to work. I was impressed with that, and I really like the dynamic between Tommy and Joel, because in the game, Tommy says to Joel Joel says, "Oh, I kept us alive," and Tommy says it wasn't worth it. It was all the horrible things they've done. And you see how Tommy just does whatever Joel says, even then. And I just want to. And Joel is such a uniquely dark character in the game, and I want to know more about that. And I hope they explore that more.
Yeah. Is there anything that you don't like so far?
Only just the slight feeling of lackingness in the cinematography.
Yeah.
And everything else, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would agree with you on all those points. I really like Bella's portrayal of Ellie. I think she's doing really well, and I think she was probably about 18 when she was filming it, and she's obviously playing a much younger girl, and I think that's she's doing that really well. And there's definitely that sort of snarky, sulky teenager thing going on there, which is nice, and just makes it feel a little bit more, yeah, believable. Like, what if, and I think that's always a good thing to have. And I think it's, yeah, it's nice to see I mean, we've talked a lot about how The Last of Us is very good when it comes to its sort of strong female, so cliche, strong female characters, realistic female characters, and realistic female male characters, and all of those things. And we have talked about that before, and I think it's nice to see that being played out on the screen. And I agree with you, and I think about the cinematography, and I think, it may just be that it's obviously a lot easier in a game to make it look however you want it to look than it, and it's a lot more costly to do that in a in a live action thing. And I'm just wondering if, yeah, if it was like, if it had like movies level funding, if that would have been resolved, if it's just because it's a TV show. But I'm hoping that, because it has been so successful, that it will just inspire, more money to be checked at these sorts of things in the future, and we'll just get to see more and more of these amazing worlds and fantastic stories. So yeah, I'm
If I
very
had,
excited.
if maybe if I had more energy, I'd bring around this to capitalism. But I'll save that for another episode.
Okay, are you sure we've got time if you want to?
Yeah, I'll save it.
Okay, so we are hoping to do a little half-hour chat about every 2 episodes. And so please join us for the next one. We have a Patreon up and running, so join that. And I think we'll have all the information will be coming up at the end of the podcast. So yeah, so it's just down to me to say thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.